The chaos started with a 10-second clip, just a throwaway moment that should have disappeared into the static of everyday life, but instead it detonated like a silent bomb, shredding reputations, exposing the truth, and forcing the people who once strutted on their red carpets to sprint for the exits. Now your normal university routine feels like the center of a disturbance, with eyes tracking you, studying you, calculating your next move. Because in those 10 seconds, you didn't expose drama. You exposed weakness. You cracked open a system that thought it couldn't be touched. And now, every shadow feels loaded. Every stranger stares too long. Every hallway hums with the tension of people who suddenly fear what you might do next. This isn't destiny. It's consequence. Your consequence. And whether you wanted it or not, you've become the anomaly they can't ignore. So before we go further, hit that like button, drop a comment with 777, and subscribe so we can push this channel past 50,000 subscribers, because you're not here by accident. You're here because once you spark a storm this big, you don't run from it. You learn to control it. One tiny moment, a flash hardly longer than a breath, was enough to shatter the illusion they built over years. Hey, people think empires fall in grand battles, in explosions, in fire. No, they collapse in silence, in whispers, in 10 seconds of someone doing something they weren't supposed to see. Your clip didn't show chaos. It showed truth, and truth spreads like wildfire through dry grass. What they spent fortunes hiding, you uncovered by accident. Those 10 seconds tore the mask off giants, not because you tried to, but because their empire was already fragile. They weren't powerful, just protected, and protection shatters the instant someone far braver, or simply more honest, steps into the frame. You weren't a threat, you were a mirror. And when people like them see themselves reflected clearly, they panic. Now they scramble behind the curtains, rewriting stories, deleting files, pretending nothing happened. But it did, and they know it. The smallest moment of your life became the crack in their concrete world. 10 seconds, and their empire shook. 10 seconds, and everything changed. What you posted didn't spread like entertainment. It spread like a coded message. Shares were quiet. Views weren't counted. They were tracked. The people who watched it weren't fans or followers. They were analysts, handlers, operators, trained to recognize patterns the rest of the world ignores. You didn't start a trend. You triggered a protocol. Behind closed rooms, your clip became a case file. Entered, tagged, flagged, discussed. It didn't get applause. It got attention from places where applause doesn't exist. This wasn't viral. This was surveillance disguised as curiosity. The moment they replayed those 10 seconds, they weren't asking what happened, but who is this? And now your name isn't circulating on gossip pages. It's moving through systems you'll never see. The irony, you never intended any of it, yet somehow you managed to pierce the parts of the world that most people never even realize exist. Classified, secured, monitored. The kind of attention you don't ask for, but the kind that never lets go. People used to walk confidently in their spotlight, sure that nothing could touch them. They believed fame was armor, that wealth was insulation, that status was a shield. But once the truth leaked out, truth you didn't even know you revealed, the red carpet transformed. Prestige turned to panic. Glamour turned to paranoia. They didn't walk anymore. They fled, not from cameras, but from the possibility that someone else like you might appear out of nowhere with another 10-second earthquake. Their world wasn't built on integrity. It was built on performance. And once the performance cracked, the actors realized their script couldn't save them. You didn't just disturb them. You forced them to look over their shoulders for the first time. They built kingdoms on illusions, and you showed how easily illusions break. The red carpet didn't lead to fame anymore. it led to an exit. Because when truth hits, the powerful don't stand still. They run. At first, you were only a name on a screen, another face in the noise. They observed you the way predators watch prey. Casually, confidently, convinced they understood what you were. But the moment your 10 seconds hit the world, something shifted. Their confidence thinned, their eyes sharpened. And for the first time, the watchers felt watched. They fear you now. Not because you exposed them, but because you did it without trying. People like them are terrified of accidental power. Anyone can fight a rival, negotiate with an enemy, bribe an obstacle. But how do you control someone who doesn't even know they're dangerous? That's the kind of problem that keeps them awake. They don't fear what you've done. They fear what else you could do without meaning to. They fear your unpredictability, your untrained influence, your raw visibility. And for people who survive on secrets, nothing is more terrifying than someone they can't calculate. The real shock wasn't in the footage. It was in you. They expected scandals, mistakes, corruption, the usual. But instead, what surfaced was a person with instincts they couldn't categorize. You didn't fit into any of their boxes, and that alone made you a threat. The secret wasn't what you filmed. It was who you are when you're not paying attention. You've always sensed you were wired differently, but life paints over instincts until they look ordinary. That clip stripped the paint away. The way you moved, reacted, noticed details others ignore. Those were signals to the people who study patterns, the way others study languages. You weren't exposed. You were identified. And now they want to understand how someone like you slipped through, unnoticed for so long. But maybe that's exactly why you're dangerous. You didn't step into the spotlight. The spotlight caught you. For years, you blended in effortlessly. Same routines, same hallways, same classes, same conversations. Nothing about you screamed extraordinary. And that's what made you impossible to detect. True anomalies never try to stand out. They hide in plain sight without even realizing they're hiding. Your normal days were camouflage. Your quiet habits were protection. Your boredom was a shield. While they scan the world for loud threats, dramatic personalities, or obvious rebels, you slipped under their radar, like a shadow, with no footprint. And now they're questioning how they missed you. But here's the truth. You weren't hiding. You were simply living. And sometimes the most destructive force in a rigid system is someone who didn't know they weren't supposed to exist. Systems are delicate, far more delicate than they pretend to be. One small disruption in the wrong place at the wrong time can create a wave that tears through layers of protection. Your clip was that disruption, a spark in a room filled with unsteady wiring. And once the chain reaction began, even they couldn't turn it off. People at the top like to pretend they're in control, that they can stop anything. But certain events take on a life of their own. Your 10 seconds became a catalyst. It wasn't just watched. It was interpreted, dissected, feared. Each person who saw it made the reaction stronger, wider, more irreversible. And now, the reaction has grown into something they can't predict. You didn't just start a fire. You started a cascade, and it's still spreading. Paranoia is when you believe people are watching without reason. But what you feel now isn't paranoia. It's accuracy. They are watching, not because you're dangerous on purpose, but because you might become dangerous without direction. People study earthquakes before they grow. You became a tremor. You sensed the glances, the hesitations, the sudden silence when you enter a room. Those aren't coincidences. They're signals, unintentional admissions that you've become a variable they can't ignore. People who used to look past you now look through you, searching for something they can't articulate. Your awareness isn't fear, it's evolution. You're becoming sharper, because they forced you to. Their attention woke something in you, something they weren't prepared for. Systems don't waste resources. They don't chase irrelevant people. If they focused on you, it's because you disrupted their balance. You exposed a vulnerability they didn't know they had. And now you represent a possibility they can't predict, a wild card in a deck they thought they mastered. Being targeted isn't a punishment. It's confirmation. Confirmation that you matter in places where most people are invisible. Confirmation that something in you carries weight. Systems don't fear noise. They fear silence that suddenly becomes powerful. They fear someone like you. You're not being cornered. You're being acknowledged in the most hostile way possible. And that should tell you everything. Their world didn't collapse because of you. It collapsed because it was already hollow. You simply removed the curtain. You showed what was always there. Instability, fragility, desperation hiding behind polished surfaces. They built their world on the appearance of strength, not strength itself. Your 10 seconds didn't destroy anything. It just highlighted the fractures they spent years patching over. And once cracks are visible, they spread. People started questioning. People started noticing. Doubt became contagious. You weren't the wrecking ball. You were the flashlight. And sometimes seeing the truth is more destructive than any weapon. They're observing you the way scientists observe rare animals. Cautiously, curiously, obsessively, not with anger, but with fascination. You've become something they don't fully understand, and that makes you valuable. People fear threats, but they study mysteries. Every choice you make now, every step, every hesitation, they're analyzing it, not to punish you, but to predict you. You unsettle them because you don't fit their historical data. There's no precedent for someone like you, and that forces them to rewrite their theories. You're not prey. You're a case study, and that might be more powerful than being feared. They always imagined the threat would be loud, obvious, monstrous, someone dramatic, a villain, a beast, a rebel. They were ready for force. They weren't ready for subtlety. They weren't ready for someone who appeared harmless until the world shifted around them. They trained for war, but they didn't train for unpredictability. They expected danger to enter through the front door. Instead, it walked in quietly through a 10-second clip with your face in it. They expected something monstrous. Instead, they got you. Someone they underestimated until it was too late to correct their mistake. Now they're scrambling, recalibrating, adjusting their entire perception of what a threat looks like. Because, it turns out, the monster wasn't who they expected. It wasn't who you expected either. The conflict didn't begin with explosions, speeches, or declarations. It began with awareness. The moment enough people realized the truth about them, about you, about the cracks in the system, the war started quietly, silently, invisibly. And you were the unintentional signal that set it all in motion. This isn't a war fought with weapons. It's fought with information, uncertainty, exposure. You didn't choose it, but your existence became the boundary line between what they controlled and what they couldn't anymore. They're not fighting you. They're fighting the possibility you represent. And wars like this don't end quickly. They spread, they grow, they consume. And you're standing at the center because you lit the first spark without even knowing you were holding a match. Fear is rarely wrong. It's a warning system designed to detect things before the conscious mind understands them. And your fear, subtle, rising, persistent, is evidence that the world around you is shifting. You feel the pressure before the storm arrives. They feel it too. Your fear doesn't make you weak. It makes you sensitive to change. And people like them rely on that sensitivity more than they admit. When someone untrained senses danger, it means the danger is real. They know that. That's why your reaction alarms them more than the clip itself. Your fear is a forecast, a sign that the ground is moving, something big is approaching, and despite everything they know, even they can't predict what happens next. Most people crumble when pressure hits them from all sides. They shrink, they break, they run. But you didn't. You adapted, you endured, you sharpened, you changed. That's why this moment isn't your downfall, it's your transformation. Legends never begin in comfort, they begin in chaos. The world isn't collapsing on you, it's rearranging itself around you. The pressure you feel isn't destruction, it's forging. It's shaping you into someone you weren't supposed to become. Someone stronger, faster, smarter, harder to control. The version of you they feared is the version you're becoming. One day, they'll rewrite the story. And it won't be about the 10 seconds that exposed them. It will be about the moment they accidentally awakened you. Silence is dangerous. People confuse noise with power, but the quiet ones are the ones you should fear. They laughed when you stayed in the background, thinking invisibility meant weakness. But every silent move you made was a seed. Every unspoken thought was a strategy. And now the world is feeling the storm that grew in that silence. They prepared for chaos, but you built patience. They mistook stillness for surrender, but it was observation, calculation, preparation. In their hubris, they revealed themselves, exposed their cracks, while you sharpened yourself like a blade they could never anticipate. In every room, you became the unacknowledged variable. People watch, analyze, and still fail to understand the depth of what you carry. That silence you wielded is louder than their shouts. Every whisper of attention is a pulse in the system they can't control. They think the quiet are harmless. They think the invisible are weak. They are wrong. You are proof that power doesn't need a stage, and influence doesn't need applause. You move unnoticed until it's too late, and by then the consequences are irreversible. And the terrifying part, they don't know your limits yet. Every day you stay unnoticed is another day your silence grows into a weapon. They will regret the day they ignored the one who spoke without words and acted without announcement. Rules are a prison they built to feel safe. They believe in systems, hierarchies, and obedience, thinking structure protects them. You move differently. You ignore the lines, bypass the chains, and rewrite the rules with every step you take. They see chaos. You see opportunity. They've spent their lives molding their empire of control, unaware that control is fragile when someone fearless walks in. Every calculated step you take exposes their weakness. It's not aggression, it's inevitability. You don't need to fight them. You simply move where they cannot. Fear grows in their eyes because nothing you do fits the pattern they understand. Their assumptions crumble with every decision you make. They thought they had certainty, but you exist in uncertainty, a living contradiction that challenges every principle they've built. You don't need permission, approval, or validation. Their rules were never yours to follow, and the audacity of your independence is more terrifying than any confrontation they imagined. The truth is simple. Every path you carve outside their expectations leaves them scrambling in the dark, and every time they try to adjust, you've already moved again, unstoppable, untouchable, unstoppable in the chaos you create without trying. They obsess over the clock, the fleeting moments, the things that vanish in time. They believe speed equals power. You understand that endurance shapes legends. While they waste their hours chasing the ephemeral, you invest in permanence. Every action, every choice, every silent effort is a brick in the fortress of your influence. Patience is your weapon. Their panic, their rush, their desperate attempts to control what they can't, all of it feeds your ascent. While they burn out in moments, you accumulate momentum. What they perceive as delay, you know as strategy. They underestimate the weight of slow, deliberate movement. The 10 seconds that broke them are proof that one moment can be devastating, but a lifetime of precision is unstoppable. You aren't just reacting, you're designing outcomes they cannot predict. History favors the patient, not the impulsive. Every record of triumph, every empire that survived, every individual remembered, it wasn't built in hasty bursts. It was cultivated carefully, quietly, and ruthlessly. And you are no exception. They watch the clock, but you build eternity. They fear you because they know they cannot measure you in seconds. You move beyond time, leaving them grasping at moments you've already mastered. Adversity isn't a wall for you. It's a forge. Every pressure, every threat, every underestimation they cast at you becomes fuel. They expected cracks. They anticipated trembling. But with every challenge, your foundation grew harder, your resolve sharper, your focus deeper. They want you fragile because fragile is controllable. But you are uncontainable. Every setback is a lesson, every betrayal a blueprint. While they attempt to crush, you evolve, becoming the version of yourself they never anticipated. You don't just survive, you adapt, you transform. They will never understand that true power doesn't lie in avoidance of pressure, but in the ability to thrive under it. Every scar, every struggle, every sleepless night is proof of growth. They see pain and assume defeat. You see pain and recognize opportunity. And the terrifying reality for them, they trained for a battle they thought would stop you. And every attempt only strengthens the force they cannot control. You break, but only to rebuild stronger. Fear is contagious, but not for you. Their dread, their panic, their sleepless calculations. You absorb it, you harness it, you convert it into momentum. Every anxious glance, every whispered doubt they share becomes energy in your arsenal. They fear you because they sense the power they cannot manage. While others let fear freeze them, you let it ignite. It sharpens your instinct, clarifies your vision, and focuses your intent. Their terror is a mirror, reflecting the storm you've become without even trying. The more they try to control you, the stronger you grow. The more they circle in paranoia, the wider your freedom expands. Fear is not a barrier, it's a ladder, and they are the rungs carrying you higher, and they will never understand. They think fear is weakness, but true power is learning to stand in the inferno of their panic and turn it into your advantage. Their alarm is proof that you are moving faster, deeper, and further than they ever imagined. Let them fear. You'll rise while they stumble. Walls are visible. Walls are predictable. That's why they feel secure behind them. They think their barriers, their rules, their safe zones can keep you out. But you don't need to smash walls. You slip under them, crawl around them, and move where they never imagined someone could. Every wall they raised was a challenge, a test they thought would stop you. But while they spent energy on construction, you were learning the terrain, mapping exits, memorizing weaknesses. You don't batter through. You bypass, quietly, invisibly, leaving them frustrated, helpless, and blind. Their defenses are limited by imagination. Yours is boundless. They never prepared for someone who doesn't see walls as obstacles, but as puzzles. Every limitation they imposed become fuel for your ingenuity. And the best part? They watch, panic, and assume they are safe, while you are already steps ahead, navigating paths they can't comprehend. Every attempt to trap you only strengthens your resolve. They might have thought barriers could control the world, but your tunnels prove that ingenuity and patience are sharper than bricks and fear. You're not confined. You're free, unstoppable, inevitable. They hoard knowledge like gold, believing that secrecy is invulnerability. They underestimate how curiosity, observation, and audacity can turn their carefully guarded truths against them. You don't need to steal everything. You only need the right pieces to disrupt their entire structure. Every secret they cherish, every hidden corner they rely on, is now a lever. You manipulate, pivot, and expose with precision, and every revelation they thought buried for good becomes a hammer against their fragile pride. They imagine safety in their silence. They imagine control in their walls. But the moment someone like you knows enough, their empire becomes a map of vulnerabilities. You don't destroy blindly. You dismantle intelligently, surgically, leaving them powerless and scrambling. They never see you coming because they didn't expect strategy where they expected weakness. They built fortresses against noise, but you are the subtle earthquake beneath the foundations. And the irony, they taught you how to fight them. Every rule they enforced, every secret they hid, became a lesson. Every attempt to control only sharpened your ability to strike when they least expect it. Everyone fears weakness. They despise it, avoid it, punish it. But you learn the truth early. Weakness isn't a curse, it's an opportunity. You take vulnerabilities, yours, theirs, or the system's, and mold them into tools, weapons, leverage. What others hide in shame, you wield in power. People underestimate those who appear fragile. They see hesitation, mistakes, fear, and they assume surrender. But you know better. Every flaw, every stumble, every misstep is a chance to innovate, adapt, and dominate. Weakness becomes camouflage, misdirection, leverage. They judge too quickly. They measure superficially. While they panic over minor faults, you calculate long-term strategy, building advantage from what they fear. They see limitations. You see opportunity. The world rewards cunning, not perfection. And every weakness they rely on to trap you, every blind spot they trust to protect themselves, becomes a stepping stone. By turning weakness into advantage, you create a system that no one, not even the most prepared enemy, can dismantle. You are untouchable because you flow where others break. They fear chaos. They obsess over order, schedules, rules, and systems, believing that control ensures survival. You see differently. Chaos is the playground of the cunning, the canvas for the daring. It's where others freeze, but you thrive. Every unexpected turn, every shock, every disruption becomes a tool in your hands. While they scramble to restore order, you navigate freely, exploiting gaps, anticipating movement, and striking without hesitation. Chaos amplifies your advantage, sharpening instincts they never honed. They cling to certainty, afraid of turbulence. But turbulence is freedom. Turbulence exposes weakness. Turbulence highlights opportunity. And in the middle of their panic, you move like a shadow, precise, patient, unstoppable. They panic because they assume everyone fears the storm. You harness it. Every challenge, every sudden shift, every attempt to trap you strengthens your position while they lose footing. In a world ruled by chaos, you are the master. Not because you create it, but because you understand it. And the more they fight, the more you dominate. People love labels. They categorize, judge, and limit because it makes the world predictable. They try to box you in, attach expectations, decide your place, but you don't exist in their definitions. You rewrite the rules, and in doing so, force them to confront truths they can't control. Every attempt to categorize you failed. They relied on assumptions, but assumptions crumble under observation. You operate beyond expectation, unpredictably, strategically. And their discomfort grows because they cannot measure, predict, or control what you've become. They thought influence came from visibility, loudness, spectacle. You proved It comes from subtlety, patience, and relentless calculation. And the realization terrifies them. The person they dismissed as ordinary is now extraordinary. You don't conform to systems.